If you are an empath or a highly sensitive person, August is going to ask more of you than it asks of most people. Not because you're more vulnerable, but because you're more open. Because the same wiring that makes you extraordinary at receiving, at sensing, at knowing things before they're spoken, that wiring doesn't have an off switch during one of the most energetically amplified months of the year. The Lionsgate portal, the solar eclipse in Leo, the lunar eclipse in Pisces. 2 eclipses in 1 month with the outer planets all retrograde and the collective field processing things it's been building toward for years. All of that lands in your field the same way it lands in the collective, but you feel it at a level most people around you don't have access to, which means you need tools that are built for how you actually work. That's what this channeled message is about. Not generic spiritual advice, specific practical guidance for the specific way empaths move through high-intensity energy periods. So let's go. Let me start by naming what actually happens in your body and field during a period like this one, because most people don't have language for it and spend enormous energy trying to figure out what's wrong with them. Well, let me tell you, nothing is wrong with you. During high-intensity celestial windows like the Lionsgate and Eclipse season, the collective emotional field gets louder. More people are processing simultaneously. More is being stirred up. Emotions that have been suppressed, truths that have been avoided, changes that have been resisted. And all of that gets amplified and it moves through the shared field. And empaths absorb collective field energy through their nervous systems, which means what you may be experiencing right now, the unusual fatigue, the emotional waves that don't match anything specific in your life, the anxiety without a clear source, the physical heaviness, the sensitivity that's higher than usual, is not necessarily your material. It may be the collective's material moving through your system. And that distinction matters enormously, because if you treat collective energy as personal healing work, you spend your resources processing something that was never yours to integrate, and you exhaust yourself working on a wound that doesn't even belong to you. The first skill of navigating high energy windows as an empath is the ability to ask, honestly and repeatedly, is this mine? I want to give you a practical way to use that question, not just as a concept, but as a real-time tool. So when you notice something coming up for you, whether that's an emotion, a physical sensation, thought pattern, sudden mood shift, pause before you engage with it, and then ask yourself, did this just arrive, or did it grow? Your own material tends to grow. It has roots. You can usually trace it back to something. It connects to your history, your patterns, or your current circumstances. Absorbed material tends to arrive. It appears without clear cause. It doesn't connect naturally to your current circumstances. It may feel like someone else's emotional signature, or a quality of energy that doesn't quite feel like you. So if it arrived, you don't have to process it. You can acknowledge it, thank it for passing through, and consciously release it. And this is not spiritual bypassing. This is accurate discernment. The Lionsgate amplifies everything. And I talked about this in the first video, the first message, but I want to be specific about what that means for your daily practice. Your energetic field is more permeable during this window. The veil is thinner, which means the good stuff comes through more easily, and the difficult stuff comes through easily too. The channel to your guidance is clearer, and the channel from the collective to your nervous system is also more clear. But this is not a problem to be solved. It is a reality to be navigated through with intention. Here's what was recommended through this channeled message for empaths specifically during this high intensity window. Morning clearing before you engage with anything external, before you check your phone, before you read the news, before you interact with anyone. Take 5 minutes to clear your field. And this doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be as simple as a conscious breath with the intention, I release anything that is not mine. I call back anything that is, and I choose what enters my field today. That intentional claiming of your field before the day starts is not a small thing. It can be the difference between moving through the day as yourself and moving through it carrying whatever found its way into your field while you were sleeping. Next, midday check-ins. High energy periods require more frequent maintenance than ordinary days. Build in a moment at midday, even if it's only 2 minutes, to notice what's in your field. What arrived that doesn't feel like yours. What you've been absorbing from conversations, environments, social media, and return it consciously. Release it, recenter, and come back to yourself. And, I'm sure you guessed it, lastly, an evening clearing before sleep. This one is especially important during eclipse season. The processing that happens in the dream state is already amplified. You don't want to take the full weight of the day's collective absorption into that space. So clear your field before you sleep. Return what isn't yours, and set the intention for your dreams to be your own. I want to reframe something about the Lionsgate portal that I think gets missed a lot in the content that's out there right now. The Lionsgate is described primarily as a manifestation portal, a time to set intentions, ask for what you want, align with abundance. And it is that. But for empaths, there's something more fundamentally available, and I think it's actually more valuable than this. The Lionsgate is also a receiving window. And the most important thing you can receive is not a desire fulfilled. It's a clearer transmission from your own soul. So here's what I mean. Empaths spend so much of their energy oriented outward, toward other people, toward the collective field, toward whatever is needed in the room that you're in. The internal signal, which is the soul's own communication, the guidance that's specific to your path and your becoming, can get drowned out in all of that outward orientation. The Lionsgate, when used consciously by an empath, is also an opportunity to orient that antenna inward. To use the clarity of the transmission window not to ask for things, but to listen for what your own soul has been trying to tell you that you haven't been still enough to hear. So how do you do that practically? Get quiet in a way that's genuinely quiet. Not the quiet between tasks, but intentional silence. Sit, close your eyes, breathe, and ask, what does my soul want me to know right now? Not what do I want, not what do I need to fix, but what does my soul want me to know? And then wait. Don't fill the space. Let it be uncomfortable if it's uncomfortable. The discomfort of genuine quiet is different from the discomfort of something being wrong. It's the feeling of the signal clarifying. And whatever arrives, even if it's quiet, even if it's not what you expected, even if it doesn't make complete sense yet, write it down. The Lionsgate transmissions have a way of making more sense in retrospect than they do in the moment. The solar eclipse in Leo on August 12th is a significant reset point. And for empaths, it carries a specific invitation that I want to name directly for you today. Leo is the sign of the sovereign self, the creative center, the part of you that exists independently of what you do for other people. Empaths often have a complicated relationship with this energy because so much of the empath identity is organized around service, around sensing, around being in relationships with others, with what others need. The question of who you are when you strip all of that away, when you're not the healer, not the holder, not the one who senses what anybody else needs or does, can feel genuinely destabilizing at first. The Leo eclipse is asking you to sit with that question without flinching. Not to abandon your gifts, not to stop being who you are, but to locate clearly the self underneath the gifts, the being that exists prior to the role. Because here's what I've learned from years of this work. When you don't have a solid sense of self underneath your empath gifts, those gifts can become a substitute identity. You become the sensitive one, the healer, the one who always knows. And while those things are real and great and important, they are expressions of who you are, but not the foundation. When the eclipse disrupts things, and it will, the people with a solid sense of self underneath their gifts will move through that disruption differently than the people whose identity is entirely organized around their role. So before the eclipse on August 12th, I want you to spend some time with this question. Who am I when I'm not being useful to anyone? And this isn't a crisis. This is simply an inquiry. As a genuine and curious exploration of what's actually at the center of you. What lights you up that has nothing to do with helping? What do you love that's purely for you? What would you do if nobody needed you to do anything? That person, the one who exists underneath the healer, underneath the empath, underneath all the beautiful and real gifts that you possess, that person is what Leo Eclipse is calling forward. Now, the lunar eclipse in Pisces on August 28th is asking something different. Where the Leo eclipse was about claiming the self, the Pisces eclipse is about releasing what isn't the self. Pisces is the sign of dissolution, compassion, and surrender. Lunar eclipses are emotional completions. Together, they create a specific kind of invitation to let go of what you've been carrying out of compassion, for someone else's pain, for a relationship's potential, for a version of the future you've been holding onto that hasn't materialized. Empaths are particularly susceptible to a specific kind of holding on. It's not the same as attachment in the ordinary sense. It's more like you feel someone's pain so clearly that putting it down feels like abandoning them. You love someone's potential so genuinely that releasing your investment in that potential feels like giving up on them. The Pisces eclipse is here to show you that that is not love. That's the cord that keeps you both from moving forward. Real love, the kind that the Pisces eclipse is pointing toward, can exist without that cord, that attachment. It can wish someone well without being tethered to their outcome. It can hold compassion without carrying responsibility for what another person chooses to do with their life. In the days leading up to August 28th, notice what you've been holding with white knuckles. Not because you want to, but because it feels wrong to let it go. Notice where your compassion has become obligation, where your love has become rescue, where your hope for someone has become your responsibility to make it true. That's what the Pisces eclipse is asking you to put down. And what's on the other side of putting it down is not loss. It's your own hands, free, available for what's actually yours to hold. So, I want to close with some specific tools, things that you can actually do this month and not just concepts to hold in your mind. 1. The daily field audit. Again, morning and evening, take 2 minutes to scan your field. What's there that's yours? What arrived from somewhere else? Return what isn't yours with a simple intention. I return this to its source with love. It doesn't require ceremony, it simply requires honesty and repetition. 2. The Lion's Gate listening practice. Between now and August 12th, build in one period of genuine silence each day, even if it's only 5 minutes, where you ask your soul what it wants you to know, and write down whatever comes to you. Don't filter it, don't edit it, just receive and record. And 3. The Eclipse inventory. Before August 12th, take stock of what feels like it's completing in your life. Not with grief, with honesty. What's done? What has run its course? What chapter is asking to close? Naming it consciously makes the eclipse's work easier rather than harder. 4. Before August 28th, ask yourself the white knuckle question. What am I holding on to out of love that has become obligation? What am I carrying for someone else that they actually need to carry for themselves? Write it down. And you don't have to release it on August 28th if you're not ready, but naming it honestly is the first movement of release. And 5. Rest more than you think you need to. This is not a month for pushing. It's a month for receiving, integrating, releasing, and becoming. Those things don't happen through effort. They happen through presence. So protect your rest. You came through the first half of 2026 to be here for this. And that's not an accident. The sensitivity you carry, the things that make August feel like a lot, is the same thing that makes you capable of moving through it in a way that changes something for real. You are built for exactly this. Drop a comment and let me know what's been coming up for you and what comes up for you for August. I read everything, and if this landed for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you so much for listening. I truly wish and hope the best for you as we move through these amazing August energies. They don't have to be difficult. They can be easy and effortless if you let them. All right, thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video.